There we are. Okay. Hello, everybody. I had a little technology glitch. Thank you for joining us again for the Summer Lunch and Learn series. We are back again this Wednesday, like every Wednesday at 12 noon Eastern Time. We are doing various topics all until the end of September, believe it or not. Yes. I tell you what, that really does fly now. I can't believe I'm already like on a third one, right, Krystal?
Right. That's it, just the time this year for some reason. I'm like, okay, wait, it's 2025. I'm still writing 2024 on stuff.
Half of 25 is gone, just about.
No.
I mean, I know it's only June 4th, but I feel like June, like planning wise, I'm already thinking like it's already the end of June.
Right. It's going to get cold soon.
Yeah. So we are here to talk about executive functioning, and this is a very interesting topic for today because it has to do with personality. But I'm gonna let first of all, let me introduce myself. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Helen Panos. I'm the owner of Dynamis Learning. It's a K through 12 tutoring, SAT, ACT prep company. We also do executive functioning and advocacy. Advocating for your child's best interest in a school system is what that is all about, and there's ways to do that. If you don't, reach out. And Krystal is going to introduce herself.
Hi, my name is Krystal Dement. I am an executive function coach. I have been executive function coaching for about 4 years now. I have a pretty good amount of experience. Before that, I worked in HR and business management, where I was helping people with their executive function skills. Also, I have a lifetime of executive dysfunction as well. And so I have figured out.
We all do, Krystal.
We do. Mine particularly was, yeah. So I had to figure some stuff out. I really did have to figure some stuff out. And so along the way, I have realized that personality and learning personality has been a very great tool for me and for my clients. And so that's where we're going today.
So yes, it's all about how you and your child's personality influences communication, and this is kind of a big deal, right?
Yes.
So Krystal has quite a bit of experience in that, so we're just going to jump right in. So let me ask you, we see many students who struggle with task initiation. Matter of fact, we did a spring lunch and learn series. If you didn't catch that, that was one of the most looked at videos actually that we did on Facebook Live, by the way. And so it's all about task initiation, kids that can't get started. How might a child's personality type influence why they're procrastinating, and what's one executive function friendly approach a parent can use?
All right. So task initiation, this is the biggest one. There are many different reasons why it happens. And so being able to identify your child's personality type is going to help to figure out how to help them get started with things based on personality. So I see everything through the Myers-Briggs lens. And it has helped us understand, particularly in this situation, you could look at an introvert that might procrastinate because they need to think and process internally before they can act, right? As opposed to an extrovert that might need to talk through the process before they can act. And what that can look like is the introvert, it can look like, well, why aren't you doing something? And then a lot of times they need to perfect their plan before they can even take action as an introvert, right? And so to us, it looks like, why aren't you getting started? Why aren't you getting started? And their brains are still developing. They're still figuring out, how to do organization. And especially with executive dysfunction, organization, time management is very challenging anyway. And so they're sitting here trying to perfect something that they don't know how to put together. And it gets them stuck in analysis paralysis is what I like to call it.
Oh, yeah.
And so, yeah, they get stuck
in the entrepreneur world too.
Yes.
Well, anybody.
Yeah, anybody. So this is part of it. And you can look at personality like that, and see how you can figure it out. So anyway, so the fear of doing it wrong is the other thing that we get, a lot in introversion, because they are thinking about it. They're sitting here really thinking it through, and they're like, I don't want to get this wrong. I don't want to get in trouble, or whatever else it is. And so on the other hand, you have extroversion, right? and sometimes the perceiving trait, and that would be me, actually. I'll go ahead and use myself as an example there. It gets energy from the outside world and likes to stay open to possibilities. Okay. So they might procrastinate because they need to talk through their ideas to get them started, or they're energized by the pressure of the deadline. And you can use that to your advantage. But what it's going to look like is it's going to look like somebody who is asking a lot of whys. Like, why do I have to do this? And it sounds like they're arguing a lot of times because they're trying to talk through it. And so we're like, because I told you to, I told you so. But sometimes they need to like process fully what it is. And you can stand back and let them do that verbally, by knowing that they're an extrovert. Okay. And so you can identify these very easily, introversion and extroversion, within your kid, because, you can tell whether they're energized by people or not pretty easily. And so try to use those strategies based on that and see what happens. Use them, let them use you as a sounding board or a body double, and see if you can get them to work there. Like saying, I'll sit with you for 15 minutes. Or tell me the ideas that you have for this. And they don't need you to solve it for them necessarily.
They just want to talk it out, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes I do that myself. Like I say, hey, I need to run something by you to my husband, right? Or I'll pick some. That's why they say a lot of times when you have your own business to get kind of like an accountability buddy so that you can run things by them. And really just a sounding board. They may not even give you any ideas because they don't really know your business, or they just aren't as advanced as you, but sometimes that's what it takes.
Right. And both Helen and I are extroverted. And so I have learned to, as an extrovert myself, and parents, you can use this too. Think about yourself and your personality type as well. If you're an extrovert and your child's an introvert, they're not going to challenge you for the floor. They're not going to tell you what their issues are because you're the one who's, filling the air 75% of the time with your voice, right? And so this is a good example of a time that you can sit back and give them the room to be able to express what their issues are with getting started. Ask that question and wait. And see what happens, because you'll get more information than it's like it opens a whole other world for you.
Is it different for adults, Krystal? Because now that we're talking about task initiation, because I know I've referred an adult to you, right? And I know you do adults.
Yes.
People who are working at their jobs that may have more stressful jobs, and now maybe they got a promotion and they now have more work to do, and they have ADHD, and maybe you figured out later on in life in your 40s that you have ADHD. Do you have anything to add about task initiation related to people's jobs as adults while we're talking about this?
Absolutely. And I love that you asked me that too, because I just got off with a client that owns several businesses, and that exact situation has happened. There are more jobs to do. There are more things to do within the new position. And so that it's interesting you asked me that. And so, yes, knowing the personality type is very important, because let's give the example of an ENFP. Okay. Now, I know it's hard to, those are just letters to everybody else, but what that means is that person is extroverted, intuitive, feeling, and perceiving. Okay. Now, when you have an intuitive perceiver, okay, the intuitive part is looking for that is like all of the big picture ideas. There's a lot of concepts going on inside the head, right? Then you have the perceiver, which sees possibilities everywhere. And what happens is the brain gets knotted up with all of the information that's coming in. It's true. And so
I believe it.
You get that analysis paralysis, because they're trying to think around all these different situations all at once.
Yeah, especially if you're creative type too.
Right. And so, and we see a lot of creative types that are intuitive perceivers like that, and their strength is that they can take something and make out of nothing. They can make something. They're the ones that can squeeze blood from the turnip, because they'll see a mess and they can be like, okay, I'll use this, this, and this, and this, and then they can put it together and make something. When you have executive dysfunction on top of that, it is very challenging, though, because you have to be able to focus on what it is that you're doing. So if it's something that they're interested in, yeah, they're going to go for that. And so in this example, this business owner goes for the things that are very interesting to him.
First,
and he's going and doing those things, and a lot of those
things,
right? A lot of those things are things that could be delegated. So that is something that we have to talk about, because also as an ENFP, he is somebody who likes to do the thing himself. He doesn't like to delegate. He's a jack of all trades, right? And so he wants to be able to do it himself. And so that's where you have to stop, and he has to take that extroversion and be like, okay, I'm extroverted. I need to introvert for a second, go inside, think about what it is that I can delegate, and then delegate those things. And so that's where the coaching comes in. It's like, okay, because you're this way, you need to make sure you're doing that. And then I can give them tools and say, okay, here, this is how you can identify things that you can delegate. And so it's a whole process, but I'm really glad you asked that question, because that's a good example.
It's a big deal. Yeah. I mean, it's a big deal. In my own business, like as it's growing, right? It doesn't even have to be you have multiple businesses, but definitely I thought about that. How do people have multiple businesses and manage it in their head, right? And so, I mean, it's almost the same as if you have one business and you're trying to grow it to sell it, let's say, or something like that. So yeah, because I tend to think ahead as well. And okay, I'm hearing what a parent's saying or whatever, and they need something. And I'm like, well, that's how we came up with executive functioning, actually, and being offered this. Right. I'm like, okay, so what's the next thing I'm going to probably hear? I'm always listening. Some entrepreneurs don't do that, can't think that way, possibly. That's just probably my personality, I assume.
It is, yes. You're the she's the one that is the CEO. Yeah. Like her personality type, Helen's is the CEO type of personality. And so she's always thinking of strategic ways to do things.
And then so, there could be a negative to that, but go ahead.
And there are, and that's the thing is we all have these positive and negative traits. And so this is a good time to insert that, how we use something like this. It's very important that you can't, when you're looking at personality, it's not a box to label yourself or your child. This is really important. Also, it's not an excuse for bad behavior. Okay. So if they say, sorry, I was late, it was my personality that made me do it. That's not how that works. And it's not a measure of intelligence or skill or anything like that. What it is a measure of is how we tend to take in the information and how we use it and how we're energized and how we process things.
And regurgitate it out too,
right? And how we regurgitate it out. And so when those things, sorry I was late, my personality made me do it, turns into sorry I was late, I tend to be this way, and now I know how to make myself better. Now I know how to balance myself.
And what are the strategies or tools you can use? And this is for kids too, right? That are late. Yeah. How do I was just thinking that because I have my godchild here, right? And I'm like, let's get out the door. You got to get to camp. Let's get out the door. And she's messing around. And I'm like, and then my husband gets in there and goes, okay, get your book back. I'm walking to the car now. So like it's tools, and she's young, but it's tools that you need, like timers, maybe to get you out the door or, whatever. An alarm going off, or I know you use something that's a voice thing, right, Krystal?
I use
a voice.
So I have my AI assistant, the ALEXA. I can never pronounce it right. That's executive dysfunction right there, by the way. I'm like, I can't even spell that out loud. I'm afraid she's going to wake up. We have those around the house, and they actually come on and say, you have an appointment in 30 minutes. You have an appointment in 10 minutes. And I even set it to, you have an appointment in 5 minutes. because I'll be sitting at my desk, and because I am an intuitive perceiver, I am thinking of 8,000 different concepts, large concepts, all at the same time. And so I've had to figure out how to organize that, where I am offloading that information, into different areas and different types of lists. That's not something that comes easy to me. So that's something I had to teach myself, which is the skill. Right. And so you can see where that comes from. And so, yeah, I mean, it's definitely a way to look at everything.
Yeah. So, it's not just the kids, it's the adults too.
It's the
right?
adults. It's the adults as well. It's everybody, and this information it's data, based off of people who take the Myers-Briggs test. So this is all data where we can see the patterns within the data. And so it's viable for that. And so that's important to know, that you can do that. Now, as far as like a fully developed personality type, typically you can't really even see that until they're about 25, but you can see with whether somebody is tending to be a certain way when they're a kid. You know what I mean? Like you can like my children, I could see their personalities like from the second they were born. A lot of people will say that. Especially the introverted and extroverted, and especially the perceiving versus judging, which is what I want to touch on, with the next.
And I think with what you're saying, so parents understand, I heard an interview with Keith Urban. So if you know anything about him, his father was an alcoholic. He dropped out of school at 15 years old, played the guitar since 5, and went and played with cover bands every day of the week. And he's terrific now to this day. It took him a long time when he came to Nashville, but he talked about in a recent interview, because he's doing a tour, how you can't choose your parents. Of course, you go with what you have, and then you can't put this blame game on it. Right? You're not to blame. Parents, don't blame your child if they are autistic, ADHD, whatever. It's it's a different time. We understand more about these things nowadays than we did 30 years ago. So do not blame them, but also you need to take responsibility for the situation. So like what Krystal just said about, it's kind of the same thing. You can't blame them, yet they need to understand they can't use this as an excuse. There's responsibility, meaning, how do you fix this, or how do you make it better?
Right. Because it's not an excuse, it's a reason. That's something that I've heard, said a few different ways within, the neurodiverse community, when we discuss things like that, is it's not an excuse, it's a reason. And when it's a reason, you have responsibility. You have responsibility to, to the people around you, to yourself, to balance yourself out. And this is a framework for that. It's a framework to see how you can balance yourself between introversion and extroversion. Because you look at like an introvert, I'll give this as an example, as an extreme. If you have an extreme introvert, they never will come out. They'll never learn, they're not going to learn new things, unless somebody pulls them out. They're not going to experience things where they're going to grow, right? And so that's not good. Then you have an extreme extrovert that's mad at everybody for not showing up to karaoke 7 nights a week with them because they're extreme extrovert. And so you have to pull those in, it's like they're also speaking without listening. That's the other thing. An extreme extrovert will speak without listening. And so you have to pull yourself towards the middle so that you're, myself, I used to speak over everybody. I remember that. I remember interrupting everybody. And now I've gotten to the point where when somebody else starts to speak, I sit back and I'm like consciously like, okay, they're going to give you the good stuff. It's going to get there, and I have that like impulsivity where I'm like, come on, get to the point, because I've, ADHD. So, but that's how that works. It's how you can look at it.
Great stuff. I know we have another question. So parents often get frustrated with a child's lack of planning or organization. Definitely. That's very popular. Can you give an example of how 2 different personality types might approach planning? Oh, that's a good one.
Yes. Yes. And this one also is the difference between myself and Helen. So I am the perceiver and Helen is judging. Now, when I say judging, it doesn't mean that you're judgmental, necessarily. It's about your preference for structure in the outer world. Okay.
Mhm.
And I'll explain that. So a judger, with judging, it's like they're weighing the pros and cons of everything.
Yeah.
Right? You're the planner. The structure is the planner. You feel calm when life is decided and organized. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So as kids, they love checklists. They love finishing projects early. For them, structured plan supports their executive function. Like they have to have that, right? As a parent's job is to help them to create that plan, right? Work backwards from the due date, et cetera, et cetera. The perceiver, the child with the perceiving, that's more of an explorer type of mind, right? And so they thrive on flexibility and keeping options open. It's interesting to say, I believe it was about 56% of the population, maybe it's somewhere right around there, is judging, and then the rest is perceiver. So there are more of the judging in the population than perceiver, right? So you're going to have more people that are more time conscious, but there is a large amount of people that are not as time conscious. They actually get stressed out when they have a schedule that's too rigid.
Mm-hmm.
It actually stresses them out. And so my calendar is going to look like blocks of time where I'm thinking around things. I give myself time to think, and I give myself time to relax my brain, because my brain is tired from
Mm-hmm.
all of whatever that comes in, because I'm processing all day. It's like running on 10 cylinders all day long. And so I have these time blocks like that, where I give myself autonomy to just be myself. And that's how I feel comfortable. And that's the difference in that. You can tell, working with a child, the ones that really need structure are going to thrive that way. The ones that you're over scheduling are going to struggle. And so those are the ones that end up, the perceivers, I would say more so, are going to end up with executive function coaching, because they look so disorganized to a judger or a judger parent, or somebody who's raised to be more on that side. Cool. So that's why we end up here. And so understanding that as a parent helps you to understand how to not overschedule your child and stress them out even further, which creates issues with organization and time management and task initiation. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like, and so I love how this ties into this stuff. I just love it so much.
That's interesting, because you do see, and we see it too, that as tutors, that gosh, a lot of these kids are over scheduled. And I always wonder, I'm not sure if that child should be so over scheduled. It depends on the child. And then I feel sorry for the parent, because I'm like, can they manage all of this, right, as well? So it's kind of interesting, because I am having to take my godchild to a camp this week, right? And I'm there in the morning and coming back in the afternoon, sitting in carpool lines. And now I'm like understanding what a parent goes through. And I'm like,
right.
But I'm having to start my day like that instead of my usual way of starting Dynamis Learning, right?
Right.
Or doing a physical activity, which I exercise, or I do journaling or whatever. So I have to change it for a week. So then I start thinking about how kids must feel when in the summertime, when we did this Facebook Live last Wednesday. So you can catch that about summertime planning and staying on schedule. And we gave a freebie on that one. Today we won't be giving a freebie, except for give us a call. But yeah, I have thought about that, and how, just a little bit of a change has thrown me off, because I have to stop working at 2:30 to run back to the church, right, to get her. And thank goodness it's not that far, to bring her back. And now I got to kind of entertain her a little bit too. But I got to break away to go do work, and then come back and entertain her again. Like, oh, did you eat? It's kind of interesting. So
it's interesting, and I'll show you another example, because we just have that opposite right there, just to show as an example. I wouldn't have thought of any of that. I wouldn't have thought about any of that. I wouldn't even been stressed out about it.
That's funny.
I would have I would have
I'm
launched
such a
into
planner.
the world. Yes, you're such a planner, and I would have launched into the world with the end goal in mind. And if we needed food, we'd stop and get food. It's more of like the perceiving side is like a kind of more like a fly by the seat of your pants
Yeah,
type of.
right.
And so if you're a parent that's a perceiver, it also is challenging to organize kids that need a lot of structure. So
Yeah,
this is another important thing, because suddenly you have to have the structure, even if whether they're a judge or a perceiver, you have to have that structure because they may need it because of ADHD or autism. And then suddenly you have a problem because you're not able to create enough structure. And so that's where parenting, parents need executive function coaching too, with somebody with my expertise, particularly, because I can help with that and helping to understand how to get around that.
Yep. Yeah. And that way they know what personality type they are. Going back to our topic, you'll know what personality type you are, why you've approached your children a certain way. Just like Krystal just explained how I viewed this whole situation versus the way she would view it would be different. And Jim would be more like you. My husband would probably be more like you, Krystal.
Yeah.
He's probably going, why all this stuff? Except for when he knows, hey, he's more on time than even I am. He's all about the timing and trying to get her out the door on time.
Yeah.
And when I asked, what time did she get picked up last night? Did her dad come pick her up? I said, was it around 6? And he's like, I don't know.
Yeah, I actually, hold on a minute. Let me really sit back and think about it, because there is just less time consciousness. They have further to go. A perceiver has further to go to reach ideal executive function standards, should I say, where we are functioning, on time for everything, with everything organized and planned. And, and it's a large percentage of the population that's like that. So
cool. Yeah. Well, I know time's up, and there's a whole lot more we could talk about related to personality.
There really is. I could go all day.
I know it's a great topic.
It is.
So maybe we'll do a part 2 later on in August when school starts back. But thank you guys for joining us. You can catch this on a replay, and there's my information at the bottom of the screen. If you need to reach out, you want to talk about yourself as an adult and executive functioning, or you want to relate it to your job, whether you're single, married, related to your spouse, related to your children, we're here to help. So, reach out, because Krystal loves doing adults.
Actually. I'll create cheat sheets for you to communicate with people.
Oh, cool. Neat. I got to hear about this.
Yes, it's fun. It's a lot of, I'll create one for you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. I've got a bunch of them that I'm doing this week, so I'll add you to the list.
Thank you. You're welcome. So everyone, have a great rest of your week. And we'll see you again next Wednesday. And next Wednesday's topic is the last one of the executive functioning ones. We'll continue. But that one is gaming. Ooh, gaming bad for executive dysfunction and ADHD. That's a good one.
Is it?
Anybody have any boys? Is it? Yeah, is it? Come on live so you can find out if it is or isn't. All right, guys. Have a great rest of your day. Bye for now.